Thank you all for coming. I'm Joanne Corey. I'm Director of Events and Alumni Relations with the University of Oxford's North American office. I'm really pleased to have you here tonight. I'm sorry I'm not welcoming you to our office space in Midtown New York, but I do hope that you are all well and getting excited and prepared for your trip to Oxford. We're very pleased tonight to have our colleague James Tibbert here with us. James is at the Student and Immigration Office at the University of Oxford, and hi James, he is going to give us some of the very important information that you will all need. I also have my colleague Lisa Knudsen here tonight. Lisa works with me on the Events and Alumni Relations team. So typically, I say welcome to our space, and I talk about how after you go to Oxford and come back to the States, we like to hold events and do receptions in our space in Midtown New York, which is right by the New York Public Library. So I do hope that you have a good time at Oxford. I do hope that you come back to New York, and when that happens, I hope to see you in person. So I will ask that you keep your microphones on mute. You are welcome to be on camera if you'd like. James will go ahead and do his presentation, and we're asking for you to type hand into the group chat, and then we'll work through questions at the end of the presentation. We do also have a current student online, and so we will introduce him later that he can answer some of your questions as well. So thank you again, and over to you, James. Good.
Right, okay, and then I'm just going to share the presentation. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, thank you very much. So good evening. So it's nice to be able to talk to you. My name's James Tibbert from the Student Immigration and Student Information Office. And I'm based at the exam schools on the High Street, which is where you would have come for quite a few of your lectures, and where you are now might be coming for some of your smaller sort of seminars and smaller in-person learning. So what we'll do tonight is we'll go through a few of the slides. And I know that some of you might be arriving in Oxford quite soon. Some of you might be starting a bit later, or there might be some of you who are actually starting online as well. So we'll have a sort of mixed cohort start this year, depending on your situation and whether you've got your visa on time as well. And then what I'll do is I'll go through the slides, and then as we mentioned, we will have the questions at the end. If you came to our graduate admissions presentation in August, some of these slides might seem quite familiar. I've updated them with some content and then added a bit more about the student experience as well. So it might be a useful refresher and some updates since you saw them last time. And then what we'll do is we'll go through 5 parts. So we'll talk about the teaching and learning, a bit about the support for your health and welfare while you're here, student life, travel to Oxford, and then finally some points on the visa issues. And then, as we mentioned, we'll do the questions at the end, I think, and we'll get you to type hand in that chat box, and then we can do them in order of the questions that you've asked. So we'll get you to speak those on the microphone. And then first of all, I was going to say, when we're sort of thinking about how the university's prepared for this, so I've been involved in a number of committees, and we have a new committee called the Student Experience Coordination Group, and a lot of sort of planning committees. We have a group preparing for the start of term, and then we've had a lot of briefings from the Vice-Chancellor. And last week we had an open forum, and it's been very reassuring to see all the preparations that have gone ahead. And personally, from my experience, I feel very impressed with what the university's done and how prepared they are. So that makes me feel quite reassured that everything's been put in place. So if we focus first on the teaching and learning side, as I mentioned, if you did come to our presentation in August, some of this might seem quite familiar. The university is committed to maintaining the highest possible standards, and we will focus on this personalised teaching and supervision, but it will be a sort of a blend of remote and in-person delivery. And then, unless your department tells you otherwise, the course syllabus will remain the same as in previous years. What we will have to do is we will have to focus more on sort of small group teaching. And then what we would have had, the larger online lectures, which typically would have been at exam schools, those will be remote instead. So there'll be online lectures and then smaller in-person teaching groups. We have looked at the time zone issue as well. So we'll have some students who are studying remotely, either for the first few weeks while they're delayed getting here, or possibly for some departments, they might be spending the first term online if it's been agreed with their department. So we've looked at those time zones and we'll plan accordingly for that. You'll find you'll be using Canvas a lot, which is our virtual learning platform, and your department will give you an induction to that, and there'll be a lot of resources available on there. In terms of the libraries and laboratories, so they will be open, but obviously we've taken steps to ensure your safety while you're there. So some reduced capacity, and that will make sure that we can follow the social distancing. The Bodleian libraries have a seat finder app, so you can locate, so you can find a place to study in the library. They also have a new service called a scan and deliver service, where if there's an old manuscript that's in a collection, they can scan that for you and send it to you by email. And then in the laboratories, you'll find that some of those times will be staggered and reduced, just so we can carry on with those social distancing procedures and to meet all the government guidance on that as well. So again, that will be something sort of covered in your induction with your department or college. In terms of your health and well-being, so as I mentioned, there are a lot of university committees that have done extensive planning on this, and we're very well prepared. All the measures that we've taken are informed by this expert advisory group, and you might have seen quite a few of them in the news talking about various issues about the vaccines, the testing, the use of face masks. So we're very fortunate that we have a lot of experts at the university to consult on that, as well as, of course, of all the latest government guidance. We do have a university testing service. So there are 2 sites at the moment, and one is in the Radcliffe Observatory, which is in the city centre. And then there's another site on the old campus, which is near our university hospitals. When I looked at the testing service last week, there's very good availability for testing. What we are doing is we're only testing people who display symptoms. We haven't taken the decision to test everybody because that would require sort of frequent testing every month. So we're focusing on people who might have symptoms, and there's an online form you fill in, and then you'll be able to select the availability from there. So you can't turn up, you do need to fill in the online form, say what symptoms you think you have, and then they'll go through the procedure with you if you need to book a test. And then at that point, they'll send you the location, the exact office where you need to go. At the moment, this is just for university staff and students. We are looking in the future whether we could expand that to families of university staff or students, but at the moment it's just for them. One other important thing is as an international student, when you come here, your college will register you with the college doctor. It's important that you do that so they've got your medical history. Also important, so we've got you'll get a national insurance number, and that needs to be logged as well if you do need any treatment for COVID in the future. Obviously everything's covered because you've paid the immigration health surcharge, so any sort of COVID related or any other illness is covered by the National Health Service in the UK. We've also done the same thing for visitors, so if you did have any family coming here as a visitor, if any visitor comes and develops COVID, is also covered free of charge for that as well. We will also, when you arrive, we'll get you to sign this responsibility agreement. And this is a sort of fairly standard procedure to say that you will abide by university safety and guidelines, and what the government says as well about social distancing and making sure you're responsible in terms of sort of hygiene in your college and in your accommodation as well. So your college will explain that to you during the induction process. And then, as you might imagine, around our building facilities, there'll be more enhanced cleaning regimes. I've been into Oxford several times in the last couple of weeks, and we're very well prepared. All the buildings have extra facilities, and there's hand sanitizer in lots of locations. And then what we will do in those common spaces and around the college and departments, they've been adapted for social distancing. We have those perspex screens as well. The university also has a policy on face coverings. So you will wear those during the small in-person teaching or the indoor shared spaces, but not when you're in your accommodation in your household bubble. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Yes, I'm moving on a bit. So looking at student life. So you'll continue to be supported through the student union. That's the Oxford SU. And we'll have a virtual freshers event, and that will be on Wednesday, the 7th of October. It will be a whole interactive day from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 in the evening. And your college and department will structure their events around that, so you have plenty of time to attend. And then it will also remain open for a month after that. So that replaces the normal in-person freshers fair we have. And this is where you can join all the clubs and societies. And we'll also have a range of university stalls there as well. And we'll have IT services, the language centre, the Bodleian, and our visa and immigration office will also be there for queries. So you'll have plenty of time to look around this and to approach all the stores in the virtual freshers fair. So I've been involved in some of the planning with that, with the student union, and it looks quite an impressive virtual freshers fair. So we're looking forward to trying that out. The clubs and societies will continue to operate as normal, and the student union's given them advice on how to arrange events with social distancing in mind. Usually we would have the matriculation ceremony in person, and that would be in the Sheldonian building. This year we'll have the formal welcome to the university with the Vice-Chancellor, and that will be online on Saturday the 17th of October. And we'll try and replicate some of those matriculation ceremony traditions, so you can see them online, and the Vice-Chancellor will formally welcome you to the university. Your college will explain how this will work, and they'll give you the timings and how to join that session in October. There'll also be some other events for if you're starting in the Hilary term in January, or the Trinity term in April. In terms of sports, some of the outdoor sport activities are restarting, again in line with government social distancing procedures. And then we're reviewing sort of indoor sports as well and how that might work in terms of the number of people allowed to mix. The student support services, all those services you might need to consult, such as welfare, careers, the fees and funding and the visa and immigration services. So they continue to operate Monday through to Friday. We're mostly operating by email, and the staff are working at home. And then we can arrange appointments if needed. And most of the times we've been using Microsoft Teams for that. So there's a full service there where you can consult us by email, and then if necessary, we'll book an appointment. Some of the staff will be coming into Oxford periodically when they need to do things in person in the office. But for the most part, it'll be a sort of online support service. which we did during the lockdown process, and we continued to work full time. And the feedback from students was very positive of that experience, that we could still deliver everything we had done in normal times. A bit about coming to Oxford and the travel and accommodation arrangements. So the colleges are all now open. As I mentioned, I've been in Oxford a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. The college lodges are very prepared, and it's all secure when you arrive at the college lodge. One advantage of the collegiate system here is that you'll be spending your time within this secure college environment. So the lodge means that there won't be so many visitors coming into the site, and the college have extensive grounds. So we're quite fortunate that works quite well from a social distancing procedure. In terms of the accommodation, the college will try to accommodate you if you need to come for quarantine. So quite a few students came here on Monday, and they've started the 2 weeks quarantine in time for the induction events, which will start at the beginning of October. But we realized quite early on in the summer that that's going to be quite a flexible timescale, because a number of students were delayed because of visa issues. And in other countries, we've also had some issues with limited flight availability. And then in South and Central America, some of the visa offices didn't open until quite recently. So it is going to be a bit of a staggered process where people might arrive at different times and might be in self-isolation at different times of the year. But the college and department will help you as best as they can. And there might be a mix where you have to start some of your classes online at first. Where they can, the college will help you with accommodation or the university graduate accommodation. Or if not, you might need to seek accommodation in the private sector. What will happen in the college and university accommodation is that you'll be grouped into household bubbles. I imagine that colleges have told you about this already. And you might be sharing facilities like kitchens or bathrooms. And then within that environment, you can mix freely. And then outside, you would need to adhere to the social distancing, which is the use of masks and the space around between people. So your college will give you a bit more instructions about how the bubbles will work. And then if one of you was to test, to have a test, the bubble would need to isolate to await the test results. And then if someone was positive within that bubble, then you would have to isolate for the period required. We have reviewed various aspects of all the college life, such as the bars, dining halls, and common rooms, and we'll aim to provide as full a social experience as we can for students, obviously within those parameters of the government guidance. In terms of travel and getting to Oxford, so students are expected to arrive here, and the residency requirements will be the same as usual. If you do have sort of health issues, or you're delayed or having a late start, then do let your department know if you're a graduate, or your college if you're an undergraduate. And if you have accommodation, you also need to inform the college. There is a self-isolation period at the moment for 14 days. Some countries are exempt, not the States. And then, as I mentioned, the college will try to provide you with accommodation and help you with meals during that 14 days as well. So what we are trying to do, as I mentioned, some students have been here this week to try and do the 2 weeks before term starts. You will also need to fill in this public health passenger locator form. Your flight company should tell you when you book the tickets, and you need to do that not more than 48 hours before you travel. It's a free online service, and it's this gov.uk one, so don't pay any other company that tries to charge you for it. Whenever you're looking at anything to do with the UK government, always look for that gov.uk one, because that's the official site. So don't look at the other sites where they might try and charge a fee, for example. We do also have a guide on the students' website. If you go onto the main Oxford website and then students, new students and international students, there's lots of information on there about pre-arrival. There's also a link to opening a bank account, and there's a guide on there about navigating your way from Heathrow and Gatwick and how to get here to Oxford on the bus, and then the best location to get off in the high street for your college. So do have a look at that information on the website. In terms of the university plan and the status of where we are at the moment, so we have a detailed plan dealing with the pandemic and then this stage system. So earlier in the summer, we were at stage 3, where there was no public access to the buildings. And then most of the teaching and assessment was done remotely. And then student and staff gatherings were only for essential purposes. Stage 4, you can see above, was the most severe stage. And then now we've progressed to stage 2 for the start of term. So trying to do operations in line with social distancing. And then, as I mentioned, a combination of some smaller face-to-face teaching, and then online for the larger lectures. And then with a fully operational research program as well. And then the other stages is there. You can see how the university plan fits in the pandemic response. Okay. And then a couple of slides about the visa requirements. So I work in the Student Immigration Office, and I might have spoken to you by some of you by email over the summer. And we've been busy helping students from around the world. Hopefully most of you are quite well advanced with your visa, or you've already obtained the visa. So the processing times are 15 working days after you've had that biometrics appointment. And then you'll get that 90-day travel sticker in your passport to travel here. If you are going to start remotely and then come at a later time, you can also apply to extend that sticker later on, and we can give you advice about that if it applies to you. You'll also need to collect the BRP, which will be the visa for the duration of your course when you get here. So you get the 90-day sticker and then the BRP on arrival. If you use that code below, that 2HE627, then the BRP will be your college. Or if you didn't use that, then it will be at the post office in St. Aldate's. In terms of the visa, so you must obtain the Tier 4 visa before you come. You cannot come as a visitor and switch status in the UK because you could be refused entry, and we can't enroll you on a visitor visa, and you can't switch from visitor to Tier 4 in the UK. So you must get it before you come. If it's been delayed, let your college and department know. We'll help you start online, and then as soon as a visa is granted, you can travel here, and then we'll manage your sort of late arrival, and then you'll need to do the quarantine when you get here as well. A few other points on the visa. So some students required ATAS. ATAS is the Academic Technology Approval Scheme, and this is mostly subjects in medicine, science, technology, and engineering, and mostly at DPhil level, with the exception of undergraduate 4-year courses in physics and materials only. So if ATAS applied to you, your department or college would have told you in May or June, and you would have applied for that ready in time for the visa. American students are low-risk nationals, so you don't need to submit supporting documents with your visa for the previous qualifications or financial evidence. Or also, if you're doing a master's course less than 13 months, you benefit from that. And then a few points of reassurance that we told to students early in the summer is that the visa decisions are made remotely in the UK. So what happened earlier in the summer was the Home Office allocated extra staffing. So they were trying to process them often quicker than 15 working days. And at the moment, we have seen a large number of visas processed in time for students to arrive here. The UK government's been very supportive as well of UK universities to allow students to arrive late if needed. And they've also worked with us to allow a blended mix of online and a physical start at Oxford. So we're fortunate in that we have a lot of flexibility in the visa system to manage that. If you did start late, or if you did start the first time remotely online. That would have to be agreed with your department or college, but that there is some flexibility in the system there on the visa side. And then just finally, just some points for EU nationals, if this applies to anybody in the group. So at the moment, if you are a dual national, American, and you have an EU nationality, you could come here on your EU passport, and you wouldn't need a visa if you came before the end of the year. And then you could apply for the settlement scheme once you get here. And then the settlement scheme would give you access to the NHS and to live, work and study here. If you came to the UK on or after that date with an EU passport, then you would need to get a visa, and unless you had that settled status through the settlement scheme. What we do say to dual nationals is that one of the requirements to come as on an EU passport is that you should have this European Health Insurance card, the EHIC card, and you can only obtain that when you're living in an EU country, and you can't get it in the UK. So if you did choose to travel on your EU passport, you could come here, apply for the settlement scheme as soon as you arrive, and then our advice would be to get private health insurance just to cover you for the first 2 months while you've got that pending application for the EU settlement scheme. The EU settlement scheme is quite easy to apply for. It's mostly done on a phone, on an app that you can download when you get here. And then once you've completed your registration, you'll be able to download what's called the Student Enrollment Certificate. And that would prove your status at the university. And you could use that to apply for the EU settlement scheme. Okay. And then I think we'll move back to the questions for now. So as I mentioned, if you wanted to type hand in the chat box, and then you can unmute yourself, ask the question, and then we'll take them in turn.
Thank you, James. So please do go ahead and type in hand in the chat box. So Elizabeth, if you want to put your camera on and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much, James. Just a quick question. I'm currently waiting on my visa. It's like with the Home Office being processed. I signed up for SMS updates, which I think just let me know when it's being mailed. Is there any way to get any kind of update about like what the progress is? Just because it is going to be kind of a tight squeeze, I think, with my flight, which is
this was just a standard service, was it?
Yes, yeah, standard service.
And then how long has it been since the biometrics appointment?
My biometrics appointment was on September 14th.
Right, yeah, so it's, okay, so that would be that's about 8 or 9 days, sort of working days since, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it might be sort of 4 or 5 days more. Have you booked the flight already?
My flight is on October 6th, and it's flexible, so I can change it, but I know it's a little tight. It's like a little past the 15-day period, but only by a day or two.
Yeah, so the standard is 15 working days, but they were trying to process them quicker than that.
Okay.
Probably fortunate in a way that a lot of universities start earlier than Oxford. A lot of them start in mid-September, so we're past that peak now. So the volume at the Home Office shouldn't be quite so great. So hopefully they can do it quicker than the 15 days.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Are there other questions for James? I know some people joined us late, but if you do have a question, please type hand into the chat box.
Rebecca?
Hello.
Hello.
I quick question in relation to the labs on Oxford. At the moment, I have kind of had some discussions with my sort of program coordinators about exactly when they'll be open, and they're kind of giving me a lot of sort of doubt, and it's not really clear exactly when things will be open. Do we have any idea of when will it either have a better timeline or where we're up to with that?
Which department is this?
Oncology.
Oncology, right? Yeah. Have you been talking to Jane Johnson? Is it?
No, I've been. I'm really lucky in the sense that the first part of my course is online, but I'm hoping to do my dissertation on campus starting hopefully from January. But that's kind of up in the air at the moment.
Right. Yeah. And then who have you been speaking to in the department at the moment?
Professor Shu.
Yes, I mean, I guess it will vary between departments, sort of just depending on that physical space.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, quite a few of the, I think some of the physical sciences have slightly more space in the lab, so they've been open earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But have you talked to the graduate studies administrator as well in the department?
No, I haven't. That makes a good idea.
I know Jane Johnson is one contact point for oncology.
Okay.
So it might be worth talking to them, because then they can then talk to the head of the department to get a sort of clearer timescale on that.
Brilliant. That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. There is also, I mean, within the department, so you've got the graduate administrator who sort of deals with the day-to-day sort of admissions functions, and then you've got the director of graduate studies.
Okay.
So I think between the director of graduate studies and the graduate studies administrator, they should be able to give you a clearer steer on that.
Okay. That sounds brilliant. Thank you.
And then Tina.
Hi, James. Thanks so much for your presentation. I'm kind of piggybacking off of Elizabeth's question regarding visas. My biometric appointment was September 18th, and I realized the 15 working days have not transpired yet, but I just wonder, are there contingency plans that we can be made aware of now so that we can understand, like, if those 15 days pass and we still haven't had word from them, you know, is there someone we can contact to and what the next steps would look like?
Yeah, so if you haven't heard within those 15 days or sort of close to it, if you want to email student.immigration@ox.ac.uk, you'll find the email address on the visa pages as well. And then if it's sort of very close to those 15 working days, we can maybe check and chase up for you.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. I had no idea that that was a service offered. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we can't sort of do it too early when it's just been submitted, because you know, it then just sort of stalls the rest of the work. But where it's quite close to that time scale, or where it's gone over, we can put in an application to find out what's going on. And it's getting a bit easier at this time of year because we're past that big peak of the summer period.
Right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Do we have any other questions for James, as it's getting late over there for him? Please do just type hand into the chat box.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I'll just say, obviously very important that you keep your college updated on your arrival time, what's happening, so they can sort of make arrangements for accommodation. And likewise, if you're a graduate student, keep your department updated as well. but we are aware that it's going to be quite a staggered arrival this year because of visa issues and possibly flight issues from some countries as well. But keep them updated so they can plan accordingly.
Are there any other questions for James? His team has been working very hard. We're very grateful for all you've done, and especially for giving us your time tonight.
Yeah, the other thing I'd mention is there's a huge range of resources online, and there's a huge FAQs that you can look through, which are really comprehensive, all about what will happen in your accommodation, teaching environment. And we've been working on those for the last 6-7 months, and then we're updating them every week. So that there's a lot of information on there, and the FAQs are really helpful. And then every time we get asked more similar questions by students, we add to their FAQs. So do have a look through those. And we've also done a lot of work with the UK banks. So they've agreed that they'll mostly can open your accounts online, and they'll get you up to upload various documents. And then if they need to check your identity, that will be done through either through a phone conversation or maybe on an app on the phone just to verify your identity. So that's another sort of process which can be a bit smoother and done online. And then, as I mentioned, on the website, you'll find a guide there about opening a bank account, and then it explains all the different services that the banks in Oxford offer to you as well. And another good point as well is hopefully you've been reading all the offer holder news alerts. You can see the back copies, so they're on the Oxford Students website, new students, and then you'll see all those offer holder newsletters that we've been sending you every 2 weeks. And there's a lot of useful information in there about visas, visa and funding, college accommodation and teaching and everything else.
Great. So I do see a question. Marwan?
Another question here.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time to answer our questions. I have since we are, or a lot of us are going to be on quarantine in the beginning of our arrival, how are we going to access our BRPs when we arrive? Are the colleges allowed to let us in for just that, or are we gonna have to delay it until we finish our quarantine? What is the policy, if there is any?
This is something I mentioned in the offer holder news. It's also on those FAQs as well. So there was a 10-day requirement to collect your BRP on arrival, but if you need to self-isolate, then that doesn't apply. So you can collect it after self-isolation. So if it's at the post office, you must wait until those 14 days and then go to the post office. The post office will keep it for at least a month. So finish your self-isolation and then go to the post office to collect it. If it's at the college, they might make arrangements to deliver it to you, but realistically, you're not actually going to need it while you're in self-isolation. The banks can open your account with the vignette sticker in your passport, and then if you've arranged for the BRP to be collected at your college, they will take a copy of it already and use it for your enrolment. So you shouldn't really have a need for it as such during self-isolation. So the college will either might deliver it to you during self-isolation or might give it to you at the end. But you shouldn't need it before that period's finished anyway.
Great, thank you.
So are there any other questions before we let James get some well-deserved rest? Well,
Well, that
James,
looks
are there any other final thoughts?
No, well, we're looking forward to seeing you soon. And as I mentioned, just keep your college department updated on what's happening. And we'll expect you when you can get here. And if there are any visa issues, then contact us through student immigration, and we'll try and help you the best as we can.
Thank you, James. Do stay well. And for all of you, if I could ask to stay on, we'll let James have a good night rest. But Henry, if I can ask you to turn your camera. Thank you, James.
Thanks. Yeah. Bye then.
Stay well. Take care. So Henry and my colleague Lisa, if you don't mind joining me on camera. Okay. Thank you, James. Hi, Henry.
Hello.
So we'll just James. Okay. So Henry, if you don't mind introducing yourself to some of our freshers, talking about your experience at Oxford now and previously, and what your plans are. And then for the freshers that are staying on, Henry has agreed to take some questions that might deal with other parts of Oxford, not necessarily the paperwork and the visas, although you might have experience from that as well.
Yeah, so my name is Henry. I'm going into the 4th year, and I'm studying math and computer science at University College. It's an experience. It's been good. It's a lot of, generally it's a lot of hard work, especially near the end of terms, but during that, in my 2nd year, I helped to co-found the University College Board Game Society. And so I've run like meetings with like 10 people playing board games there, just been good fun.
And where are you now, Henry?
I'm currently I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Are you going back to Oxford this term?
Yeah, I'll be leaving Sunday.
And what are you reading at UNIV?
Math and computer science.
Great. So we asked Henry to join us because typically when we are in our office space that I mentioned earlier, we like to have some alumni to talk about the other side of Oxford. And I know it might look a little different than maybe when you left, Henry. I assume you came back to the States last March or April. When did you come back?
March.
So it'll be a different Oxford, but I think, for all of us, everything looks different. So if there's anyone that has questions, maybe there's someone that's going to UNIV or reading maths or wanting to know more about your board game society, which I think sounds really interesting.
Questions about social stuff?
Yes.
May or may not be happening.
Right. How is UNIV's food? So please do feel free. You can write hand in the group chat, or it's a smaller group if you wanted to put your camera on. I think we can probably manage letting people chat here. Does anyone have any questions? Henry, do you do anything else outside of the board games society? I know a lot of times the questions I hear are, everyone talks about rowing at Oxford and I'm not a rower, but should I try it? Have you tried it? Have you gone punting?
I've not tried it, but I mean, I know a lot of people who have.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that do rowing do, as far as I know.
And everyone always says it's a very early start to your morning, right?
Enjoys. Yeah, starts at like 5:30 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous. I like my time to sleep in the morning too much for that.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure plenty agree. So is there anyone that has any questions for Henry, or please do get in touch with us. We can also try to connect you if it's a specific question about a college that's maybe not UNIV. There are other alumni volunteers that weren't able to join us tonight that wanted to. So before we let you all go on with your evening, just want to make sure there wasn't anyone else that had questions for myself or Lisa or Henry. No? Well, I thank you all very much. Thank you, Henry, for your time. I thank you all very much for joining us tonight. Stay safe and well and enjoy your time at Oxford. Safe travels. And we certainly do hope to see you when you're back in the States and things are a little bit more normal.